When I got on the stand to testify at the hearing for the termination of my parental rights, I had my laptop with me. If anyone noticed, they didn't say anything. I took it so I could record myself reading the letter that I had written for the judge. While I may not always be able to speak eloquently in the moment when emotions are running high, I am very good at expressing myself on paper, when I can think through what I want to say without interference or interruption. I am very excited to finally share this video with the world. But first, a little backstory. And for the record, I have documentation, or I can provide witnesses that will verify everything that follows. I swear on my life. I finished writing my letter the day before the hearing, but I had agonized over what I would say when I finally got the chance, and I wrote it over and over again in my head for almost a year and a half, for 509 days to be exact. 509 days since my children were taken from their father by the Department of Human Services. 509 days of absolute hell. The DHS caseworker didn't hesitate as she violated every single one of my children's rights, and my rights as a parent. My sons were placed with a foster family almost 100 miles away from our home, and when the caseworker testified that they were the closest foster family to us,
Lies.
I know that there were 5 families that could have taken all 3 of my children, and Vinton alone. I didn't want my kids to live with my mother while I fought to get them back at all. How does it make any sense to take my children from me and give them to the woman that screwed me up in the first place, so she could lie and manipulate my children and try to control my life? No. I gave the social worker the contact information for the woman that I called Mom. She watched my youngest when I was at work, and her family was willing to take all my kids. The kids loved her. She lived much closer to me, and they would have gone back to the same school. The caseworker never even bothered to call her. I was only allowed 1 supervised visit a week due to staffing issues, and because the caseworker felt that the long trip was too hard on the boys. And there were times that my children and I went 2 or 3 weeks in a row without a visit due to bad weather or, again, staffing issues. Phone calls were an issue from the beginning. Instead of daily contact, I was only allowed 2 phone calls a week. When I did get to talk to them, our calls were always on speakerphone, so our conversations could be monitored. My long list of concerns were either consistently ignored, or DHS would address my concerns in front of the judge, at court, or at a family team meeting. But it didn't matter. Nothing ever changed. My lawyer kept telling me not to say anything. Don't make more trouble for yourself. Just do as you're told and you will get your kids back. Every achievement I checked off their list was overlooked in their reports, and it seemed like every negative was emphasized or exaggerated, or it was a complete lie. It sure as fuck never felt like she cared about me, or my kids, or like she even wanted me to succeed at all. There were never any safety or health concerns while my children were in my care. As a matter of fact, the permanency specialist from 4 Oaks, the guy who provided transportation for my sons and supervised over a dozen of my visits, testified on my behalf, and I have multiple recordings of phone conversations with him where he reassured me that he had no concerns and that everything will be okay. I imagine that the expenses for my case were adding up quickly, with pretty much a full day's wages and transportation costs for my visits. Plus, they had to pay Lexi's grandma to drive her from Gothenburg. They were obviously eager to cut their losses and be done with me. 509 days from the date they were taken to the date of the hearing. During that time, I did everything they asked me to do. I completed substance abuse counseling at Pathways. I provided a clean, safe, and stable 3-bedroom home. I maintained full-time employment. I submitted random urine samples to both DHS and my probation officer. I endured severe allergic reactions to the sweat patches, a testing method that no one else uses due to false positives. But the reactions were so bad that I had made multiple trips to urgent care, and I required prescription antihistamines for my long documented adhesive allergy. But she continued to order them. They even tested my hair twice. The second hair test was negative. I gave them negative drug testing for almost a year. But apparently testing is only deemed reliable when the results align with what DHS wants. Despite all of that, the DHS caseworker filed to terminate my parental rights as soon as she legally could. The worst part is, she really seemed to enjoy it. It would be really nice to hear her honest answer as to why. After testifying and answering the prosecutor's questions, my lawyer asked if I had anything else I wanted to say. When I responded that I had prepared a letter to read to the court, I could immediately feel tension in the room. They didn't see it coming. And judging by the looks on their faces and the way they shifted around in their seats as I spoke, they were not happy to hear the truth about themselves. I have never claimed to be a perfect parent. In fact, I have very openly admitted my mistakes and tried to make amends where I could. I continue to struggle with guilt, and I am harder on myself than anyone in the world could ever be. I may be a lot of things, but a liar is not one of them. I know all of this seems outrageous. Trust me, it blows my mind too. It's understandable if you doubt me, but I told you, I have proof. Between the legal theft at Jim's lot and everything from our home that I put in storage after they took the kids, my old life is gone. Faded memories of a former life. But, for the grace of the gods, I still have my filing cabinet. They told me in nursing school if I didn't document it, then I didn't do it. And I took that to heart. I know that there is a reason why I still have every piece of paper that I was ever given my entire adult life. Every doctor appointment, counselor, therapist, paperwork from the schools, every court document, every assessment from every time DHS was called on me, I have it all. And there's more to the story, of course, but you will have to wait for the book, because this video is getting to be long enough. One more thing before I play the video that I recorded that day. I thought I would take a second to introduce everyone. Team Legal Kidnappers. The Honorable 6th District Court Judge Barbara Leisfeld, Kelly Smith, Assistant Benton County Attorney, Melody Butts, Guardian ad litem for my children, Mindy Jewell, Benton County, Iowa DHS caseworker, Dave Feister, Scotty's attorney, Lorena Wepler, Four Oaks family support worker, Josh and Ashley Drew, foster parents. Team Me Plus 3, Geneva Williams, my public defender, Sean Englert, Four Oaks permanency specialist, Dylan Meredith, my brother, and myself. My children were not allowed to be there to speak for themselves because it would be too traumatizing. And yes, I am aware that I could face criminal charges for sharing any information related to the termination of my parental rights. But I don't care. That is 30 days in jail I would gladly do, if that's what it takes for people to know the truth. And now, it's movie time. Ready? Let's go. Action! Your Honor, I have been writing this letter in my head for over a year and a half. I will do my best to keep this as concise as possible through the edits, but I greatly appreciate the opportunity for you to hear my words. I would be doing myself a great disservice if I did not first reiterate the perseverance I have shown through an unusually high number of difficult life circumstances. I have no issue admitting how much these circumstances were the result of my own poor decisions and or how I allowed them at the hands of those around me. The pages of the reports submitted to the court on behalf of the department do not give my education, life experiences, and career as a professional nurse the credit that I have earned. They haven't utilized my strengths
and skill sets to the best of their ability for the benefit of my children. I do not feel like they have acknowledged the major life events and hurdles that my children and I have faced and overcome together. I will not waste time outlining these events to you, but I would like you to consider the magnitude and sequence. It was my plan to offer a timeline to the court, not as excuses for where we stand today, but as a factual account of our lives before and since this has started. I would gladly provide supporting documentation for every life event if so requested. I must also briefly discuss a binder I had hoped to prepare containing all of the reports filed by FSRP workers, DHS, and the GAL since my case was opened. In the beginning, I reviewed every document carefully as they arrived and filed them. After the first couple court dates, I realized that this was counterproductive to my mental health and stability. I filled a large tote with mailings and did not open them until I prepared for court this last month because so much information is inaccurate and heavily focuses on the negatives with no avenue for rebuttal or clarification on my behalf. In fact, the multiple attempts I have made to discuss these errors and omissions have been described as making excuses, scapegoating the blame on everyone else, and/or acting with reckless disregard for the consequences. It is incredibly frustrating to me that one can have unrecorded conversations with my children with a plethora of opportunities for misinterpretation or words taken out of context and submit subjective accounts to these conversations to the court as evidence. It is incredibly frustrating to me that these reports contradict the impression of others involved in our case, and more importantly, others that have been in our lives for years, while repeated requests to allow my children to speak for themselves have been denied because of the potential trauma. It is not my intent to sound unappreciative of the hard work that those involved in child protective services go through. I cannot imagine the horrors that these women have witnessed and have no doubt dedicated their lives to fighting. Both personally and professionally, I have witnessed many tragedies and horrors myself. As a former community health nurse case manager, I have a true understanding and firsthand experience with the many difficulties in our small Iowa communities and the effects on our youth. I respect the mission of each discipline and team member involved here today, but I confidently go on record right now to challenge their methodology and their ability to remain unbiased without ongoing education and individual mental health support. In nursing school, we were taught how to differentiate when assessing safety concerns versus a difference in our values or points of view. There are extensive resources outlining many varied schools of thought on parenting. I do have an unorthodox parenting style that is the result of my own upbringing, my education, my professional experiences in the field, and takes into account personality differences amongst my children and their unique life experiences. None of these women have life experiences similar to mine or my children, and it is not their duty to push their parenting strategies on me, although I do take them into account. It is their duty to monitor for and address safety concerns. I have not been notified of any safety concerns. This team seems focused on my relapses without consideration for the tremendous strides that I have made. I cannot fathom how so many can so grossly misunderstand the recovery process, the collective human traumas inflicted by the department's current protocols, and the direct relation to relapse, recidivism, and low reunification rates. A major majority of this focus of my letter was going to be on all the things that I have done. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, with safety and security, socially, I have made huge strides. Barring the fact that my kids aren't with me, I can't breathe from day to day. I can't make plans beyond the next court date. I am happier with myself than I have ever been in my life. Through it all, I have gotten the chance to find myself again. I will be the first to admit that I had reached a breaking point in the summer of 2018, and I desperately needed help. Most adults have trouble with a handful of my major life changes, and I was treading water after dozens. I'm not proud of many decisions, but I know that I'm an amazing mother, and my children were born to me for a purpose. In order to love, you must love yourself, and that means embracing every obstacle the same as every opportunity. I needed a break from the heavy load I carried for years on my own. I also needed that break to be over months ago so I can breathe again and so my family can move forward and continue healing together. I hope that you take my words today, the testimony of my loved ones and those that support me, your own observations and interactions with me, and I had planned to put together a photo album of our lives. All of these things I would hope you would take into consideration as you prepare to make a decision that will have unimaginable ripple effects for years to come. Thank you.
I was impressed at this point.